the people's champion. Our mission is love, our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice, the people's champion.
It's a beautiful Monday here in Kingston. We're grateful to be alive and relatively well. A little under the weather, Jade and myself, but we give God thanks. Welcome to another episode of Let's Start Justice with Jamaicans for Justice. My name is Mikkel Jackson.
And my name is Jade Williams.
All right, so we're going to be having an important conversation in a few minutes around the importance of accountability in Jamaica's Hurricane Melissa recovery and response. And we're going to be joined by Jeanette Calder, who is the Executive Director of Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, Professor Trevor Monroe, Founding Director of National Integrity Action, and we are also to be joined by Clyde Williams, attorney at law, who has made some very good tweets on this, sharing his perspective. So in the interest of time, we will move from the week that was, and Jade and I will have some discussions towards the end of the program. So I will turn over to Jade for you to go through your trivia and the giveaways that you have.
All right, well, before we get to the trivia, we'll quickly do the right of the week for this week, which is on immunity protection for whistleblowers. So this right comes from Section 15 of our Protected Disclosure Act, and it says that any person who makes a protected disclosure or who receives or investigates or handles that disclosure cannot be taken to civil court, nor can they be charged with a crime or disciplined at work simply for being involved with investigating or giving that disclosure. So this is the section that protects whistleblowers when it is that they give protected disclosures under the legislation. We do also have a trivia question for today. Our trivia question for today is, what percentage of Jamaica's GDP is estimated to be lost due to the destruction caused by Hurricane Melissa? We've heard our Prime Minister speaking about it quite extensively. So what percentage of Jamaica's GDP is estimated to be lost due to the destruction caused by Hurricane Melissa? You can respond to this in the YouTube chat on YouTube. You can respond on our Instagram, or you can send us a WhatsApp at 2397583.
All right, so important topic to be had. So just to put things in context, we've heard some discussions around accountability, and we've also seen, for example, the Integrity Commission putting out a statement encouraging persons who may be privy to acts of corruption to call the Integrity Commission, and it's under the Protected Disclosure Act, the whistleblower law as it is commonly referred to, because we recognize that in the face of a natural disaster such as this, or in the wake of a natural disaster rather, such as what Jamaica has experienced, unfortunately acts of corruption will take place. And we've also seen calls from Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, which Jamaicans for Justice last week, I believe it was, we lend our support to the call from Jeanette Calder asking for real-time audits. And we've seen since then where the Auditor General has indicated that that will be done. We've seen comments or a public release from the private sector organizations, rallying that there needs to be that oversight body to ensure that you have the type of accountability that we're talking about. We've also had our own statement last week again, where JFJ, we call for a similar oversight body that moved beyond parliamentarians, but also has experts from civil society and other relevant organizations and stakeholders to be on that committee. Last week as well, we saw where there was a little bit of a spat in Parliament between the government and the parliamentary opposition in terms of what type of parliamentary committee there should be. So we saw where the government has proposed that a joint select committee from both the upper and the lower house across both aisles would be established. We heard from the parliamentary opposition that they would not submit names to sit on this committee because they are of the view that the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee is in fact enough to do what that joint select committee is being established to do, and they instead believe that the oversight committee that I spoke of earlier is sufficient. So in all of this conversation, what we want to have with Jeanette Calder, Professor Trevor Monroe, and Clyde Williams, what are the best practices that we should be looking to as we talk about accountability post-Hurricane Melissa? And I believe we already have Professor Monroe on the call.
Also have Jeanette.
Also have Jeanette. Not hearing from Clyde as yet.
No.
All right. Good afternoon, Prof. Good afternoon, Jeanette.
Thank you very much for having us.
Good afternoon, Jeanette.
Thank you so much. Jeanette, let's start with you because you've been quite vocal on this. And, some of the pushback we've gotten is, why are we making noise? Why are we, preempting the possibility of corruption? Why not wait and see what happens? So if you could just explain to the listeners, the importance of accountability, notwithstanding the fact that we know that our government has the best interest, the state has our best interest, but why is it important to be talking about accountability and transparency?
Well, I thank you for the question. That's a good place to start. I think the best way to respond is to say if Dr. Nigel Clark, the former Minister of Finance, were to get that question, he would say that there's nothing wrong with what civil society is saying, because I myself, during the period of COVID between 2020 to 2023, had to take steps preemptively to ensure that the funds that we needed to respond to COVID got to the places and the people who are in need. So I am referring here to the fact that Dr. Clark himself had decided to do something that I found to be very unusual, and I think it's fair to say I don't know any other politician who has done this, but in a time when you have an emergency and speed is essential, large sums of money have to be dispersed quickly for the sake of helping. That is a time most politicians, and when I say politicians, I'm not just speaking of those in the House, I'm including our councillors in it, are fully justified in spending money because there's this great need. Yet what Dr. Clark did in COVID was to put a pause on the spending, to say to the Auditor General of Jamaica, we want a real-time audit because we want to ensure that if mistakes are made, we catch them at the same time, and if mischief is being made, we can catch it at the same time. So this is our very own politician, a government politician, acknowledging the fact that what is not only true in Jamaica, Michael, is true everywhere. In times of emergency, we would like to believe the best of people, but human nature don't work like that. And so wherever there's a window of opportunity to take advantage of the fact that we're spending large money, we're spending quickly, and most importantly, in an emergency, the normal, regular procurement rules and guardrails that are in place to protect the public funds are not in place in order to facilitate a quick response. So because the guardrails have been lowered a bit and significantly not gone to facilitate the quick response, people take advantage of it. So we are just simply saying, can we learn from the success of Dr. Clark and the Auditor General, from the precedents they set in monitoring 2 different programs in that period in real time? And not only that, I can get a little further if you want me to in terms of what they did, but just to answer the preliminary question, we can't even stop at that because there are other things that we need to look at and ask for other ideas for accountability measures, and for one reason and one reason only, to make sure that the people who are in need, that the money and the supplies actually get to them. And what can be wrong with that? If nothing goes wrong, wonderful. But if something goes wrong, Michael, we can catch it. And that's all civil society is saying.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before we get into the specifics, let's bring Professor Monroe in. And Prof, I will throw the same question to you, the importance of accountability and transparency, before we start talking about some of the specifics.
I fully agree with everything that Jeanette just said. But in addition to that, I would also want to add...
Prof, let's take the break and then we pick up with it, please.
MSME operators, the NWC MSME Amnesty is a lifeline. Grab it. Apply between September 1 and November 30, 2025. Visit nwcjamaica.com. Email us at customercare@nwc.com.jm. You can also visit any commercial office or dial 888-NWC. Get a 50% debt write-off on your small commercial account if you pay all other outstanding debts or sign a payment agreement to do so in 3 months. Apply today.
Enough power tool, big to small. Chakama figure dig the wall. Up a total tools. Weed whacker figure trim the lawn. We have everything a job demand. Total tools. We rent them, sell them and fix them. Also give Total Tools a call. When I say home improvement, landscape construction, a Total Tools are your option. Home improvement, landscape construction, Total Tools are your option. Total Tools located at 102 Main Street, Ocho Rios, 34 Slive Road, Kingston. And lot C6 Jacksaw, St. Anne's Bay. Call us today.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We're discussing the matter of accountability post-Hurricane Melissa. And Professor Manuel, my apologies, I didn't realize we were up on the break and I cut you. So if you could just pick up from where you started for me.
Well, let me first of all say that we all need to commend the first responders, particularly the neighbors of all those who were hit, and the immediacy of their response in terms of relief and assistance to one another. And secondly, the doctors and nurses, health workers, and police officers who were on scene and responded in the way that they did. And I would say that taking up from that point to where Jeanette was, normal accountability measures are, of course, for normal times by definition. In the context of an emergency of the magnitude that Jamaica has just experienced, even surpassing the COVID-19 situation, then it requires very special measures to ensure that the monies that are available, the monies that are being provided by relief agencies, by voluntary associations, get to the people quickly who are most in need. And it is in that context that I fully agree with what then Minister Clark did in terms of the real-time auditing by the Auditor General's office. But we also need to acknowledge that this response and the relief that we are now facing in the current crisis, the Melissa crisis, takes place in a context where levels of trust in our institutions or democratic arrangements are extremely low and are being prejudiced by allegations, some of which seem credible, that those in most in need are not being attended to by the authorities as quickly as possible. And secondly, the elements of political favoritism involved. And it is to that extent that we need to make certain that the accountability mechanisms are such that they build trust and secondly ensure that those most in need get the relief that is available to the extent that it is. And therefore I fully agree with Janet, and I'm happy to see that there's a great deal of consensus, not only across civil society organizations, but in the private sector as well, calling for appropriate oversight mechanisms to ensure accountability.
All right, thank you so much. So, Jeanette, back to you to get into some of the specifics now. How do we ensure accountability? What are some of the specific ideas or calls that are to be made?
Well, I think the government and the listeners must recognize that when we say government, I know sometimes we think just of the politicians, but the Auditor General is the government's auditor. She is the department, is the people's auditor. And so we have already seen one response from the government, which we anticipate will serve us as well as it did the last time. And just to say to your listeners, what really happened the last time is that you have ministries, departments, and agencies during COVID getting money. And just picture the same thing happening now in order to understand the mechanism. And typically, your finance directors and the accountants in each state entity would be recording what money come in and what money go out. But the Auditor General's role usually comes after the fact, after the program finished, after the project is done, after the spending, An auditor's job is to come to check and to determine three things. Was the money that you were supposed to get, did you receive it and how much? Where was it spent? Did it go to the intended beneficiaries? Maybe the donors had a particular, in this case, a particular place they wanted it to go. Did it get there? And did you follow the laws of the land or the terms of agreement for the money that you got? Those are the three things that the auditor is going to double check. And they're looking out for what? Mistakes made, genuine mistakes. They're looking out for mischief in the reporting, mean false reporting. And they're basically going to come back and tell the parliament and the people through their elected representatives what their findings were. But the problem with that, Michael, is that that's usually after the fact. Has done gone through the gate. Money lost, reputations at stake. And in this case, I mean Jamaica's reputation. Because a lot of the money is coming from overseas. Now, I really want to just pause here quickly to make a point, Michael.
Please.
Listeners, even if nothing goes wrong, and we are hoping it doesn't, it is such a good look. Try and think of it. Somebody has come and given us like $1 billion. Don't you think it would look good for Jamaica to say to the person, to the entity, to that government, this is what we're putting in place to reassure you that we have not only done the right thing, but we can demonstrate to you that we have done the right thing. Here are the reports. You understand what I'm saying,
Yes.
Michael? It looks good. Prof said an important thing there. It builds trust. And so the next time around, if we need help, it's not going to be that hard because that donor is going to say, boy, me never even have to pressure the government, They just handed me a report at the end of this. And I think that is also very important. The other quick part, Michael, is while the government was spending during COVID, the Auditor General is checking at the same time rather than a year or months later, and was able to spot the duplication sometimes of requests for payments, spot the fact that the same past household was going to and they were able to quickly tell that to the Ministry of Finance, who immediately was able to rectify it. What that did is save the Jamaican people, thousands and millions of dollars in real time, right then and there, rather than after the fact saying, we don't know what happened, next time we will do it better. So that is one way in which we expect the Auditor General to make a difference now. But just to quickly tell your listeners again, she can't audit everything. The department can't audit all ministries. Therefore, Michael, there has to be some other accountability measures in place. And one of it, which I'm sure we'll get into further, is the question of a committee, a multi-sectoral committee who is also working with the Auditor General and all the departments and agencies to watch two things: the flow of money coming in and the flow of the supplies coming in, and getting reports in real time as to where they are.
Yeah, thanks much. Just to segue to Prof now with that committee, because Prof, we have a committee already established, but I believe it's only cabinet members. I stand corrected with that. And there was a call for a broader oversight committee that's multi-sectoral, that's one level, versus having the PAAC doing what that joint select committee of parliament that was just proposed to be done. So there are two committees that I'm referring to here now. That broad oversight committee that would replace the earlier committee that the government had announced, that's one. And then secondly, the government last week indicated that they would be establishing a joint select committee, but the parliamentary opposition said, no, I believe the PAAC is enough. What are your thoughts? Prof? We lost Prof. Jeanette, I'm not sure if you heard the question just now. Seems like we're having some technical difficulties. Jeanette? All right, we lost both guests.
Oh dear.
All right, yeah. So just for the listeners, and you can share your thoughts in the chat while we get back our two guests in terms of what that oversight committee would look like, what we believe their roles and functions should be, as well as the whole issue last week of a joint select committee that would include both members across the aisle, but from the two houses of parliament versus the PAAC, which we already have in place. And remember, the PAAC, that's when you go on the PBC platform and you hear the committee members asking robust questions, asking for documentation and so on, to have discussions about expenditure from the different MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. So you can share your thoughts while that is happening. But another thing that jumped out at me, Jade, with the real-time audit, whether there would be a website or if there should be a website that have, so we know that you have the hurricane, the support hurricane site, and I do encourage people to give to the platform. And you have as well, other in-kind contribution coming in. So I'm keen to understand how that real-time audit will have it. But we have Prof back. Prof, I'm not sure if you heard the question before we lost you.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. We got cut off. But can I just respond to what you just asked a moment ago?
Please.
And that is in relation to strengthening the real-time audit and the mechanisms associated with it. I think it is very important that not only the agencies at the top and the officials at the top and the civil society leaders at the top know who gets what when. We need to have a portal that allows the ordinary citizen to know who is getting which contracts under the emergency procurement system, and secondly, where it's going, where is this money being expended? Because as we speak, there are numerous complaints by folks who are saying, we haven't seen anything, we haven't seen anybody from the state, not just politicians, of course, but the various departments and agencies. So I think a portal that allows real-time access to see who is getting what in terms of contracts and who is getting what in which communities and districts in terms of benefits. I just want to add that as one way of strengthening the pre-existing mechanism that were used under COVID-19, particularly in a context where despite the strength of the then system, one of the shortcomings, both in the Capri study as well as in the Auditor General's report, that a lot of the folks, a lot of the persons who were most in need did not know what to do to get what help, and were not even aware of the needs, the facilities that were being provided. So we need to get less centralization, more decentralization, more means for citizens themselves to get involved, to know what is going on, and to contribute as they see fit in making reports, which the Integrity Commission has called for. And of course, the Auditor General also has that facility where there are irregularities being observed.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I'm happy you mentioned the issue of contracts and how they're being issued, who's getting what, the dollar value, and so on, especially given some of these procurement processes, as we all know, it will change based on the emergency need. But before we get back to Jeanette, Prof, I want you to answer the question earlier regarding that oversight committee. So I believe there was a cabinet established committee, and there was call from the private sector organization and other segment of society saying, listen, we need a multi-sectoral committee that will include civil society. That was one committee that was being called for. The other side of it was a parliamentary sessional committee, and we heard where the government said, listen, we're going to be establishing a joint select committee, but the opposition said, no, I believe the PAAC is enough. So I just wanted your views before we get back to Jeanette to hear her thoughts as well.
Well, on the first point, in relation to an oversight committee beyond that of the cabinet, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, thankfully. There's a National Partnership Council on which has been sitting since 2011 when it got formally established. Both the government and the opposition, as well as the trade union movement, private sector, representatives from women, youth, and academic groups. And this National Partnership Council has been strongly endorsed by successive administrations, starting with Scotia Simpson Miller, then Bruce Golding, and now Prime Minister Holness himself, who has a promise that the National Partnership Council will be strengthened in terms of its secretariat and administrative capacities, as well as, I believe he said in his presentation to Parliament, not last Tuesday, the one before, that the National Partnership Council would be reactivated and begin the necessary amendments to make it functional and provide that oversight in a way that would reduce any allegation, much less the reality, of partisanship in how things are being viewed in the overall administration of the response to COVID. So I think the NPC is very important for it to be reactivated. There's already a partnership agreement that expires in 2026 that needs to be looked at and amended to deal with Melissa.
Yes.
So that's the first point. The second one in relation to the Joint Select Committee, I think the PNP's reluctance or reflection on saying they're not going to join is unfortunate, because even if it is to some extent redundant or going to overlap with the functions of the Public Administration's Appropriations Committee, it nevertheless would provide a signal to the country that the people can go to Parliament under the mechanisms of the Joint Select Committee, make their submissions in public, and be heard by both sides of the membership in that Joint Select Committee, which includes senators as well. And since I'm on the point of the Senate, it's of some concern to me that since the new Parliament has been sworn in, the Senate has not met. And one would want to know why this is so. It's an integral part of our bicameral system.
Yeah, also share that concern, Prof, that the Senate has not met. So I completely agree with you that that is a pain point that I believe, a public statement ought to be made as to the reasons for that and when we can expect the Senate to in fact meet. And I completely throw my support behind your statement that even if the PAAC, the Joint Select Committee rather, is redundant, I believe that the parliamentary opposition is doing a disservice by not putting members there. So, Jeanette, your thoughts on the oversight?
I agree with Trevor. I was sympathetic to the opposition's concern because if the public understands what the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee is supposed to do, it is supposed to look at what I've heard the Prime Minister describe as macro-critical projects and programs, meaning things that we're investing and doing that we can't afford to wait for an Auditor General's report down the road. We have to fix them then and there, because if they go wrong, it has a multiplier effect on the economy and the country. So that's the purpose of the PAC. It's to call in the technocrats to find out what is happening with any program or project that's really doing a lot of spending. So that's perfect for something like this. But Trevor is right. The opposition chairs that committee. So if the opposition thinks that that committee over there is as Trevor said, redundant, call the PAC meeting. Do it anyway.
Yes.
Go to the meetings and get the job done. And Trevor said you can go and attend that one, but continue to do what you understand is mandated for you to do through the PAAC. I see the question of the National Partnership Council differently, however, because that council, as much as it is a multi-sectoral committee, it has a particular kind of mandate, which is a little different from the terms of reference for a disaster response committee. And I would want to make sure that the committee is fit for purpose. No, this is not just for collaboration and to hear what is happening and to get an update. You want people on that committee with particular competencies and skill sets to what? To be able to actually say, hold on, I see a concern here. Somebody who can see a red flag and say, hold on a second, this is not quite the best way I think it should be done. So it's not just to be a recipient, Michael. So I would want, for example, a member of the Auditor General, one of the oversight bodies will be there. I would really want somebody from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, because their expertise is on the financial flows of money, is on inventory management, is on resource management.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people that you want in it, and I'm not so sure that the NPC would be fit for purpose for a disaster, massive disaster relief response kind of oversight. So the NPC can do what it has always done, but I think that we need a different kind of committee than the PAC. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to say something. I might regret saying it. But Michael and Prof, I am hard pressed to see a committee a parliamentary committee being entrusted with this, and it bringing the outcomes that we really want. I see a lot of, from the parliamentary term and year hasn't started well, a lot of bickering. I've seen some immaturity on both sides that concerns me. And I think we need to have a kind of focus of all hands on deck right now, and we need more than parliamentarians to properly address the issue at a committee level. So it's bigger than a parliamentary committee for me, Mikhail.
Yeah, I agreed. Because, even from the place of distribution of these scarce resources, we've seen comments since from one member of parliament that they're not getting enough or any support from the government. Then you saw a former MP in one instance saying that the current MP is not giving to their political supporters. So to you, Prof, if you could just explain and perhaps give your thoughts about the importance of such a committee in understanding that accountability is not just watching the inflows, but also the outflows of those resources once you've gotten them.
Absolutely. And in that context as well, I have to say that I am not satisfied with the extent or the lack of involvement of the municipal corporations who are at the local level. The local development system is now a part of our constitution, a local governance system. And each of those municipal corporations are supposed to have an equivalent of the public administration, public accounts committee, chaired by a civil society person who will be looking at the ways in which expenditures in an emergency situation are being administered and to ensure propriety. So I think in general, a mechanism has to be found to put more engagement from the local level through the municipal corporations, through the various development committees under the FDC, so that the ground gets involved more effectively. In relation to the National Partnership Council, I do agree with Janet that it does have the expertise that is required for technical oversight. But what it has done in the past, up until present, is actually bring persons in to report on what is happening related to the technical dimension. I mean, most recently, the National Partnership Council had a special meeting on the public sector wage negotiations issues, which proved to be particularly fruitful in avoiding what might have otherwise wretchedness becoming into work stoppages. So yes, it would require a special mechanism and a special set of linkages to ensure that the technical dimension is brought to its attention. But the oversight, I can't overemphasize the importance of it not only being in fact, but appearing to be that everything that's done in relief and response is bipartisan. I take, for example, the current tour of prime ministers from CARICOM into the various hard-hit parishes and areas. I would have liked to have heard whether, in fact, the members of parliament in each of those constituencies are involved in not only planning the tour, but engaging themselves, involved with the prime ministers from CARICOM. There just needs to be some greater degree of decentralization and more obvious bipartisanship in everything that's said and done, starting with the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition and going downwards to the lowest level of accountability.
Yeah, thanks for that. There was a thought, and I'm going to throw this to you, Jeanette, because we've spoken pretty much about the state accountability. But we understand that you have many good Jamaicans and members of the diaspora giving. And I heard that the Department of Corporate and Friendly Societies, and both of you, each year we go through getting our charity certificate, and the hardship in getting that. And I saw where some of these requirements are being waived, for lack of a better terminology, so that we can have more individuals and organizations being in a position to benefit from a charitable status. But it dawned on me what type of accountability we're ensuring is in place when it comes to private sector and individuals in this relief response. And I'm not sure if you have any thought on that, either of you.
Well, not much other than to say one of the things that JAMP had proposed that the government do, and we felt that in 2025 we were not taking advantage of what technology could do to perhaps even address a concern like you raised. A relief, I would call it an RTP, or a relief or recovery transparency portal. In this day and age, it don't take no time. We have eGov and we have the Amber Group that has been helping the government to put together a portal where, let's say, and I know this is a concern in the diaspora, let's say I'm going to send $100,000 in cash or kind to Jamaica. I should be able to go to that portal. I don't want to get into the mechanics of it because I haven't worked it all out, but you should be able to go to that portal and to advise that this is what you have done by submitting some proof, or the government on receipt of it have indicated that it has been received. And in real time, Michael, you are able to track that your money has been received and where it goes. Or, for example, if you send 20 pallets of tarpaulins, I've spoken to friends who are, pretty high up, for example, in some of those, I won't call the name, but courier companies internationally, who says it is so cost-effectively cheap to just place a digital...
We've lost Jeanette.
So it appears.
Prof, you're here with us? Seem like we need some Starlink. Go ahead,
One of the
Jade.
thoughts that has been across my mind as we've had this discussion is feasibility. I was hoping that, I know earlier in the show Jeanette was saying she was going to give a little bit more detail about what happened during COVID-19, because I'm listening to all the proposals and I'm like, how feasible is it? Would we be able to actually gather all of this information in the timelines that we're talking about? I know the scale is a bit bigger than COVID, so just what mechanisms we would have put in place before that made it so effortless or made it work so well in the COVID time, that could reassure us that this kind of effort would work for this.
Yeah, good thought. Yeah, I agreed that the specifics of what was and given the scale would be necessary. But, the reason for this portal also being important, and to the point I was making earlier that Jeanette was responding to, when you will see the best and worst of us during a natural disaster. You see people going down, rebuilding schools and roofs and so on. So you have the best of us. But we also have unscrupulous individuals. So again, this is why this conversation is so important. Jeanette, we lost you. I was joking that maybe we need some Starlink to connect us.
No, man. Boy, I'm in Liganisha. I don't know why this should be so difficult, but where did you lose me?
You were given the example of people who were bringing in things or wanted to send things in and so on.
Right. There are two kinds of things coming in. In-kind supplies,
Yes.
Food and tarpaulin and that kind of thing, generators or cash. And I'm saying it would be really good, and it's not difficult. Remember, JAMP builds these portals, and we have 6 of them, and we know it don't take long to do. We would love to see the government put together a live dashboard where both the donors and the beneficiaries can contribute. Yeah, it also simply means that, I was giving an example, if a pallet of tarpaulins came in 2025, it's very cost-effective and very easy to place a digital ID on each bag, Michael, which has geotagging on it, which simply means that when it gets to the wharf and it gets cleared and it leaves and go down to, let's say, to St. Anne or to Hanover or St. James to a particular warehouse, a distribution point, and then that bag is going to leave and get to maybe a local police station for distribution, you can track it real time all the way. Those are just some very quick and innovative things, and not just the relief, but the money.
Yes.
As a donor, if I give money, if the government had a real live dashboard, You should be able to see that money came in and say, good, it has registered, and you should be able to see in real time. And when I say real time, maybe weekly updates. Yes, Michael? Not daily, not minutely, not
I think that
hourly.
was the question Jane was struggling with just now. What does real time means and how feasible these things are?
Right.
Yeah.
Very feasible, because I can tell you, if the listeners will go now to a website that a Jamaican, just who have the skills and capacity to build a website, has already built a portal called reliefja.com. Did it in less than a week.
Yes,
and
yes.
I think it is tracking volunteers and, people who have a problem can actually indicate on the dashboard immediately where you want. That was in a week. The resources of a government, of course it can be done. And not only that, I also think that dashboard should be able to have persons indicating the difficulty that they're having. If you can get a signal, you can tap in and advise that. One of the complaints now is that Ground Zero, which is where St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland is the focus. But there are people with serious dire problems in Trelawney, in Hanover and St. James, and some in St. Anne.
James, can you hold that thought for us? We have to take the break, and I'm begging both of you just to stay with us for a few more minutes. Please.
This is a public service announcement from JPS. JPS is urging customers not to pay anyone to have their electricity service reconnected. Customers are reminded that unauthorized reconnections can be extremely dangerous and can result in serious injury, electrocution, or damage to property. This practice is unethical, illegal, and could delay restoration efforts. If anyone claiming to represent JPS requests payment for reconnection services, report it immediately to the nearest police station or JPS. JPS thanks all customers for their patience as teams continue working to restore power safely and as quickly as possible. That was a public service announcement from JPS.
They've lost homes.
Everything is gone. I've no house, I've nothing.
They've lost power.
No water, no food, no light, no bed. Jamaican people need desperate help.
Some haven't heard a familiar voice in days.
The last thing I said to my sister, please be safe. And that was the last time.
For others, hope is starting to ebb. But together, we are rebuilding Jamaica, one parish at a time.
We have to try. We have to try. Can't give up.
Join Nationwide 90 FM from November 21 to December 19, every Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. as we broadcast live from Westmoreland, St. James, Trelawney, Hanover, and St. Elizabeth, helping families and communities rebuild after Hurricane Melissa.
And you can help too.
Bring your donations, non-perishable food, water, hygiene products, lighting, or recovery supplies to our office at 14 Ocean Boulevard, the Digital Building, downtown Kingston.
Let's show the true strength of our nation: unity, compassion, and care. Together, we can rebuild lives and restore hope. Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Give us strength. Oh, never let I fail.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We have been discussing post-Melissa recovery accountability with Jeanette Calder from JAMP and Professor Trevor Monroe, Founding Director of National Integrity Action. Prof, I just wanted to get your perspective on the same question, because we've discussed quite extensively how we can monitor the state, but as private actors, private individuals, organizations receive these donations and this kind of funding, what, if anything, can we do to monitor how that is distributed?
Well, first of all, I agree fully with Jeanette's suggestion in relation to the use of technology to facilitate that. Even before we go down that road and how, as necessary as it is, we need to restore some of what has disappeared over the last 5 years. For example, up until 2020, you and I and the public of Jamaica could go on the website of the Integrity Commission and we could see quarterly contract awards, what contracts were awarded by ministries and departments and agencies, to whom to do what in what period of time in the previous quarter. That has been stopped because of an interpretation of the law that says it was not appropriate or it wasn't legal. So one of the things that needs to be done immediately is to make the amendment in that law to allow the restoration of quarterly contract awards to be made available to the public, and more than that, to ensure that awards made under the emergency response system, which we now have in the procurement arrangement, that those be published on a monthly basis. We really do need to know who is getting what to do what, and allow the public on that basis to say, well, look, we don't like some of how this was done. I report this to the Integrity Commission, and the Integrity Commission has asked us to do just that if we don't like some things that look suspicious, and similarly the Auditor General Department. So I'm saying that mechanisms of transparency need to be restored and they need to be strengthened given the emergency situation in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, completely agree. And I just want to add, I believe every single organization that benefits from the reduced waiver requirements from the Department of Corporate and Friendly Societies, it ought to be made public, because you're talking about significant benefits in tax waivers and so on when you're importing things into the country, and you would not want us to have an organization being established for the sole purpose of benefiting from that charitable status, and then the benefits are not translating to those who are in need. So I believe every such organization should be made public from the...
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Fully agree, 100%.
All right, so that's where we have to leave it. Let me see. Oh, no, I wasn't about to say last words from each of you in a few seconds. I'll start with you, Prof, and then Jeanette closes out.
Yeah, I would say, again, commendations to all those who have risen to the occasion and doing all that good neighbors to do, both those near and those from afar. But we do need extra measures to ensure that the public, especially those most in need, are aware of where the money is going that's been allocated to them, who is to bring it to them, and they themselves get more involved in taking decisions that would allow their communities to be more immediately impacted, and in particular, the need to get over either the perception or the reality of political or partisan bias, which is in violation not only of decency, but the rights of the Jamaican people under our Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Thanks much. Jeanette?
Well, I wish it was Prof, because he had a more positive final comment, right? I just say that I would be doing our situation a disservice by not simply acknowledging that Jamaica has an accountability problem. We've had one for decades, and there is very little indication to suggest that it has improved tremendously outside of, for example, that mechanism of real-time audit. So for those who are concerned about the inappropriateness or the timing of us looking at this issue, I don't think it is fair. I think all the indicators and reports that come to Parliament does demonstrate that Jamaica has an issue, and I think that this hurricane can be actually the game changer and the turning point. So it is a legitimate concern, and we should use this as an opportunity to turn the corner on poor accountability and actually begin to improve it, not only now, but thereafter.
Great, thank you so much. Yes,
go
ahead.
Note to what Janet just said. One area in which we can immediately begin to turn is that of the 164 ministries, departments, and agencies, which are giving their annual reports of what they have done for the previous year and their finances, and lodging it to the Cabinet and to the Parliament. Only 14 have been in compliance when last we checked the report on the Cabinet Secretary's website. This is an opportunity to really do the right thing, the legal thing, in a way that would build confidence in the public in what is now pretty low.
All right, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you spending such a long time with us. I know you're both quite busy.
No problem. Thanks
have a
for
good
having
day.
us, Michael. You too now.
Our pleasure. My pleasure.
So that was Professor Trevor Monroe and Jeanette Calder speaking to the importance of accountability and some proposed mechanisms that we should be looking to establish or strengthen. All right. So let's get moving with our Run for Rights. We just have a few minutes left. So if we could just share our little flyer on the platform. So as you are aware, we have our Run for Rights event coming up on November 30. Last year, boy, I tried, but Jade ran the entire stretch. She walked 1K with me.
Yes, I was forced.
Yeah, and then I jumped in the bus and made it back. But I'll see how best I can do the full 5K this year. Not promising us all that, but we'll see. All right, so November 30 is JFJ Run for Rights, and you can register at my.raceresult.com/ that's what, / you call it? /
yes.
Yeah, so my.raceresult.com / 355144. That's my.raceresult.com / 355144 for our upcoming Run for Rights. And it's only $2,500 to register and an extra $1,000 for the shirts. And as usual, you can indicate what cause you want to support, whether broad human rights, child rights, gender-based violence, or climate justice. And as we indicated last week, part proceeds will support hurricane relief efforts. And we just want to, Jade, if you could quickly go through our sponsors that we have with the flyer off the screen. You have it?
So our Run for Rights sponsors, I know that we have the Jamaica National Bakery. I
have it.
Yes.
All right. So Continental Bakery that makes the nice hard dough breads. Support them. They have been a supporter of us. That's National Tasty, Lee Supermarket, Mother's Catering, Royal Trophies, G-Jam Hotel, Kingston Harwich, Jamaica Observer, our very own nationwide news network, Jamaica Private Power Company, Starlight, Elco, Wisinco, giving us water and power aid, National Housing Trust, Caribbean Dreams will be with us on the morning, ensuring that you have hot beverage. So thank you so much to our sponsors, and we will acknowledge you again next week. Without you, the event would not be successful, and we just want to encourage people to sign up on the platform. Get yourself registered, Run for Rights.
Yes, before we close out, just to quickly say, news commentator, welcome back, by the way. You have won today's trivia. Our trivia question for today was, what percentage of the GDP was estimated to be affected by Hurricane Melissa? The correct response was 28 to 32%. So congratulations on your win. We'll reach out to you via WhatsApp. Just to say, for those who did not hear, we're doing the Run for Rights November 30. I will be running in human rights this year. Last year I did climate justice. Feel like climate justice would have been more poignant for this year. But I'm doing human rights. So you can join me on the track on race day.
All right, so that's where we have to leave it. It's a pleasure, as always. My name is Michael Jackson.
And I'm Jade Williams.
Have yourselves a good week.
Justice, the people's champion. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many, we are one in Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Jamaica's poverty rate has dropped from 16.7% to 8.2%. As the government's economic program begins to pay off, our country is heading towards sustained growth. We are building Jamaica. The time by the office of the Prime Minister is
1 minute after 2.